Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim. Bismillahir rahmanir rahim. Alhamdulillahi rabbil alameen. Ar-Rahmanir Rahim. Maliki yawmiddin. إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين. This is the first chapter of the Holy Quran, Surah Al-Fatiha. The translation is, in the name of Allah, the Gracious, the Merciful. All praise belongs to Allah, Lord of all the worlds, the Gracious, the Merciful, Master of the Day of Judgment. Thee alone do we worship, and Thee alone do we implore for help. Guide us in the right path, the path of those on whom Thou hast bestowed Thy blessings, those who have not incurred Thy displeasure, and those who have not gone astray. So today I will continue on the subject which I have been doing throughout the month of Ramadan, which is the need of the Holy Quran. And today I chose to recite Surah Al-Fatiha because this surah is actually you can say the summary of the whole Quran, and it has in it so much depth of knowledge and understanding that through it we can actually perceive and understand the Holy Quran in a very summarized format. And through it also, it leads us to all the different avenues which we find being opened up to us in the Holy Quran, in all the different various chapters of the Holy Quran. This is also a main prayer for the Muslims, and without this prayer, our prayers are not deemed to be accepted. This is a very essential part of the prayer. Any dua that we do as well, we should include Surat Al-Fatiha in it. And about this surah, there are many things that we can say, but it leads us to a good understanding of why we need to study the Holy Quran. And also, there are some prophecies in it which speaks about the latter days. And this one prophecy I would like to read, which the promised Messiah ﷺ has foretold in his book Kashtinu. He says that a person who unleashes the wrath upon mankind is eventually ruined in a similar manner. That is why in Surah Fatiha, God has named the Jews as Maghdubi alayhim, that is, those who have incurred the wrath of God. This implies that though all wrongdoers would incur the wrath of God on the day of resurrection, those who unjustly vent their rage in this world suffer by divine wrath in the present life as well. This is why in Surah Fatiha, they are referred to as Daleen, the misguided. The word Daleen has two meanings. In the first instance, it means they have gone astray. And in the second, it means they will be completely lost in something. I believe this is a glad tiding for the Christians, as it foretells that a time will come when they will be delivered from a false religion and lose themselves in Islam. Over time, they will issue their idolatrous beliefs. They will abandon their false and disgraceful practices and become monotheists like the Muslims, that is, those who practice the unity of God, or Tawheed. Thus, the second meaning of the word ad-dallin, which appears at the end of Surah Al-Fatiha, means to be completely lost or immersed in something. This is a prophecy regarding the religious state of the Christians in the future. So you know that the present age and period of mankind that we are going through is that age, which is a prediction from the Holy Quran about that time when the Christians will start turning towards Islam. And this is mentioned here by the promised Messiah والسلام, in case she knew that this would happen. And it also gives an indication too that in the Holy Quran there are words which have multiple meanings, as well as they have negative meanings as well as positive meanings. They have negative prophecies as well as positive prophecies. So in the age that we are living in is an age where we can see this unfolding before our eyes, the prophecy of the West actually turning to Islam. I spent a lot of time during Ramadan to explain about the different aspects of Islam and how, or I should rather say the different aspects of the Holy Quran and how the different the influences that they had on the European thinkers and scholars, and how it influenced them in quite a positive way. And this is a divine plan of Allah, and it was not without this this divine plan that we can see gradually it coming about bit by bit, that the European nations are turning towards the understanding of Islam bit by bit. And in our day and age, if it hadn't been for the one aspect, if it hadn't been for the fact that the Ahmadis hadn't been persecuted and been pushed out of the region of the subcontinent of India, Pakistan, and they wouldn't been pushed out, and our Khalifa also wouldn't have been pushed out by force, then we can see that perhaps this rapid growth of Jamaat in the West wouldn't have taken place as we have seen it happen. So that was the one of the divine blessings of Allah and Allah's wisdom for this persecution, that Allah brings about the streams of light by blocking the streams of light in one area. The streams of light actually they're transcend, or they spread out into different areas. And it was that was one of the means for which this persecution actually turned out to be a big blessing for the distribution of the knowledge for the whole world. And our beloved Khalifa, Hazrat Khalifatul Masih Rabi Ramallah, he mentioned once in a question answer session that when someone mentioned about the legacy that Islam brought to Europe, that they actually were able to bring the enlightenment and knowledge from their past civilization, the Greek civilization. And Hazur responded that you have to give thanks to the for this actual happening and taking place. You have to give thanks to the the government or the monarchy of the Spaniards at the time, which was Ferdinand and Isabella, when they had expelled the Jews and the Muslims from Spain. Hazur said that it was because of this that the light and the knowledge which Islam and Muslims brought to Spain, if it hadn't been for that, that light and knowledge that was brought to Muslim Spain may have even just stayed there, confined, and then died. But actually what happened was it spread all out, all around, for France, to the Scandinavian countries, to England, all around, the knowledge of which we were discussing and I was discussing in my previous Dars al-Quran about the concepts of understanding, living together in unity, or living together in respect and understanding among other religions. This concept of freedom was something born by the Muslims. So this was a divine plan, and this divine plan was carried out because what Hazur said was that at the time when Islam was bringing all of this knowledge to Europe, the Europeans were not accepting it. They were not listening at all to this message, whatever message Muslims brought. So they were, in another way, through this process, they were able to, to get this knowledge brought to them through various means, like I said, through scholars, and also through those who translated the works of the Muslim scholars. But they did this because they were scattered throughout Europe. They had to leave from Spain, and they brought with them the teachings which they learned from Muslims in Spain. So now we are in that age when we are seeing that there is a change also in the Western world, when the scholars, and this is a point I wanted to mention here, because someone asked Khalifa Rabi Rahmallah also a question about Ahmadiyyat and why people are turning to Ahmadiyyat. And Hazur said that the reason is that because the message is universal. And I wanted to mention this because it actually ties into what I was discussing in the very beginning of my Dars al-Quran about the message of the Holy Quran being universal. And Hazur said that the intellectuals are turning to Ahmadiyyat, and they are accepting Ahmadiyyat, they're accepting the message of Ahmadiyyat in the West. And he said the reason is because they are finding it logical and rational, and it is not going against their common sense. And he said that the message is universal, and because of this message, it is appealing to the common sense and the rationale and the mind nowadays of the European intellectual society, and also the European society, or the Western society as a whole. So with that, this is very important point that we should realize is that, and I'm connecting this to the very beginning of my dars, was that Hazur said that the way in which you can distinguish between a true religion and a false religion, he said that a true religion will have rationality, and it will lead to God through rational ways, and the teachings, the religious teachings, will not have any clash with the secular civil universal established laws and moralities. They will not clash between those. And Hazur said that any message which if you want to say, or you want to see, when you're looking and you're deciding between other faiths, a person is trying to figure out whether this faith is right or wrong, is to see whether or not that faith is restricting them to believe narrowly in one path, and looking down on other people and saying that they're wrong, that they're in the wrong, and they don't have the right to practice their faith, and they're completely false. So Hazur said that in order to see and understand that a religion is true, is that it should be universal, it should be broad-minded and accepting of others, and allowing others to practice their faith, and allowing others to live in harmony with their same faith. And this is what Islam brought, and this is the message of Ahmadiyya, which Ahmadiyya brought, which is in fact a resurgence of the same teaching, which is a revival of the same teaching in this day and age. So we're in that period, in that time, and Alhamdulillah, we are part of that blessed revolution which is taking place with the help of Allah Ta'ala. As we are also in the month of Ramadan, we're also in a very prayerful state. We only have we have today a few hours of today, and then we have tomorrow as well, and then it will leave from us. So we are during this time very much inclined towards getting as much benefit as we can out with the last remaining moments that we have. And these last moments that we have, we turn to pray. So I just want to mention also some aspects about that, including in this subject about the importance of learning the Holy Quran. And what Hazur, he said, Promised Messiah ﷺ said about prayer in the same book about Noah's Ark, which was the reference I just gave. He said that supplicate so that you might be granted strength. He who is at the time of supplication does not believe that God has power over all things except that which might be contrary to his promise is not of my community. How fortunate are those who cleanse their hearts and purify them of every impurity and swear on oath of loyalty to their God, for they will never be destroyed. It is not possible that God should humiliate them, for they are God's and God is theirs. They will be safeguarded at the time of every calamity. Foolish is the enemy who moves against them, for they are in the lap of God and enjoy his support. So when you pray, do not be like the ignorant naturalists who have in their own fancy devised a natural law which does not bear the seal of God's book. They are rejected and their prayers will not be accepted. They are blind, not of those who see. They are dead, not of those who are alive. They present to God their self-devised law and presume to limit his infinite powers and deem him weak. So they shall be dealt with according to their condition. So Hazur is referring to that, that inclination in man to turn to his own self-made means in order to make things happen, and to rely completely and solely on those. So this is what Hazur is mentioning here. So those people who are making up their own laws, which are counter to the laws of God, they are not going to have success, and their prayers are not going to be answered. So he's actually, in fact, he's clearly explaining that it is important that we should follow the laws of God, and that we should turn to God solely and rely on God solely. And when we do this, when we rely on God solely, then Allah will be ours, and no one, even the enemy, no enemy can harm or bring any type of problem. As much as they try, they cannot really inflict any true harm. Just as I told you, I said, you may be thinking, oh, but things happen. No, things happen. I said that, listen, that I explained you that one point, that when the Jamaat was being persecuted in the 1970s, and then ultimately they ousted the Khalifa, or Khalifa had to leave Pakistan. Did it suffer? Did Jamaat suffer? We had to go through the persecution. We had to see those trials. But did Jamaat suffer? No. Jamaat did not suffer in any least. In fact, Jamaat grew. Actually, those who claim to bring about some kind of stop to Jamaat, and they try to bring some clear-cut destruction on Jamaat, they never succeed in it. In fact, when they do this, they're foolish, as Zuzur says here, the foolish enemies, and they never can understand and perceive this. That's why I also explained in the early day, in the very beginning, when Islam had spread in Europe, and they wanted to destroy the light which was brought by the Muslims into Europe via Spain. Did they actually stop? Did they stop the enemies of Islam? Were they able to stop the light from spreading? No. Were they able to finish the blessed message? No. Muslims may have left. Muslims may have had gone their way, but the message did not suffer. The message actually went deep into Europe, and it actually went deep into the minds and psyche of the Europeans, without a full and total conversion, but there was a conversion of the mind. So we can see that in the time of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, whenever they inflicted harm on Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam and his enemies, we saw that they grew in stronger, and they in more strides. They were able to get more success, that ultimately, when they were kicked out of Mecca, they came back as rulers with thousands and thousands of soldiers, and they didn't have to come in and even fight their way back. They came in as rulers. So this is how we should perceive God. This is how we should perceive God. We should believe that God has the power to support, just as God has supported his beloved followers in the past and is doing now. So Azur says, when you stand up in prayer, it is necessary for you to have firm faith that your God has power over all things. Only then will your prayer be accepted, and you will behold the wonders of God's power that we have beheld. Our testimony is based on observation and not on hearsay. How should the supplication of a person be accepted, and how should he have the courage to pray at times of great difficulty, when according to him he is opposed by the law of nature, unless he believes that God has power over everything? Unfortunate ones follow not these practices. Your God is one who holds aloft innumerable stars without the use of columns, and who has created heaven and earth from nothing. Then would you think so ill of him as to imagine that your objective is beyond his power? Such ill thinking will frustrate you. Our God possesses countless wonders, but they are visible only to those who become his out of sincerity and loyalty. He does not disclose his wonders to those who do not believe in his power. and who are not sincere and loyal to him. How unfortunate is the man who even now is unaware that there is a God who has power over all things. And then in the same page, the Promised Messiah mentioned in also about that power of Allah, and it says that God is incapable of nothing. Nonetheless, with regards to prayer, the Book of God sets out the principle that He deals with pious people most mercifully, like a friend. At times, He overlooks His own will in order to accept their prayer, as He says Himself, "Ud'uni astajib lakum," that is, pray unto me, I will answer your prayer. However, at times, God desires that His own will be done, as He says, "Wala nabluwannakum bi shay'in min al-khawfi wal-ju'i," that is, and we will try you with something of fear and hunger. Thus, on occasion, God deals with a person according to the supplicant's prayer because He wishes to enhance their certainty and enlightenment. So sometimes our prayers are accepted, as Huzur says, because Allah wants us to, our enlightenment and understanding about Him to be raised up to a higher level. And then He says that on other occasion, He carries out His own will so that He may confer upon man the robe of His pleasure, to raise his station and to enable him to advance on the path of guidance by His love. So sometimes, as the second instant may happen, that even for a believer, when Allah doesn't accept the prayer of the believer or his beloved, He is actually putting him through a sort of trial so that He can raise him up through that trial and become more stronger. So you understand this, that the trials that are there are to make a person stronger, especially those who are beloved of God, especially those who are moving towards God. If we do not understand this point, this is where we will stumble, and we will actually make a lot of mistakes, and we think that, oh, we're going through some hardships, and maybe Allah is not listening to us, or maybe we're this and that. But if we are firm and we have a conviction, we believe in God, and then these trials that we go through will help us actually to to have a strength, and to and also to prove to Allah that we love Him, and we don't mind having to go through struggles for His cause and for His sake, and whatever His will is, He knows best. And we should have this attitude in our life, and if we do have this attitude in our life, then we will always have the blessing of God, and Allah will always give us much more blessings in the future, and our generations also will benefit by it, and they will also be blessed by this as well. Then the next point about Surat Al-Fatiha, because in the same book of Kashtinu, or Noah's Ark, Huzur, he goes into quite some detail about comparing Surat Al-Fatiha and the Gospel, and also he also speaks about the Quran in general, different points of the Holy Quran in general, and he says in comparison to them about the specific information about them. And so in one place, when he was talking about the Surat Al-Fatiha, and it's a very important thing, because and this is a very important thing to with there's just a coming to the end of this dars, and how to sort of summarize points. There's so many points that we can say about why we should read and why we should research the Holy Quran. What benefit does it give us? When we look to the previous scriptures, they guided to a certain point, and they were developed and advanced to a certain level and certain point. And the teachings which Hazrat Isa alayhi salatu wasalam brought, they emphasize mostly on meekness. And what we find that now, because that was a message at that time for those people who needed to have this message, because their understanding of religion was very literal understanding, and thinking that if we apply our faith in a very literal and rigid sense, then we will get the blessings from our faith. And they were also applying their faith in such a way that it became a means for them to think that they can use force and use forceful means in most situations, which is a rigidity. And this is what has happened to the present day situation of Muslims. And this is also prophecy of which we find in Surat Al-Fatiha about Maghdubi alayhim waladdallin, that the Maghdubi alayhim, that also Muslim would suffer, and we should pray that we don't fall in that category of being like the previous generations, like the Jews who had incurred the wrath of God. This is also a prophecy that this would happen. But what happened was that when Jesus came, he emphasized to the Jews that you should become meek. So what happened was that we find that meekness is used, and the Christians nowadays in their teachings, they apply this to everything. But in fact, this is not what the Quran is guiding us to look for. Actually, in fact, in the promised Messiah enlightens the Muslims on this fact, and enlightens the whole world on this fact, that if you want to search and seek blessing from God, you should seek from getting the blessings to enhance all of your faculties, your bravery, your meekness, your patience, your sincerity, your truthfulness, every type of faculty, moral, spiritual, and physical. And this is what the promised Messiah explained about describing about the prayer, Surah Al-Fatiha. And so I'll read it. And he says that in the very outset, Surah Al-Fatiha speaks of those perfect and mighty attributes of God which have not been so clearly stated by any other scripture in history. As Allah the Exalted states, He is Ar-Rahman, the Gracious, and Ar-Rahim, the Merciful, and He is Maliki Yawmiddin, the Master of the Day of Judgment. Therefore, we are taught to beseech Him. In addition, the supplication is in question, does not merely ask for daily bread, like the prayer taught by the Messiah. So one of the main prayers of the Christians was that we should have our daily bread, meaning we should have the worldly sustenance. Another point before I continue on this is the aspect of these fundamental attributes of Allah, which are mentioned, Ar-Rahman, Ar-Rahim, and Maliki Yawmiddin, and Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. So these four principal attributes are in the outset mentioned here in the Holy Quran, and throughout the Holy Quran, they are highlighted and they're explained quite in depth, and we are able to understand in what extent we can understand God, and then we can understand how to mimic and try to acquire those attributes in us. So it's very essential to understand this before we can, we can know how to improve our moral faculties, our spiritual faculties, our physical faculties. So once we understand the making of God and His creation and what He is instilled in us, the capacities to reflect those qualities, then we are able to work on it and then try to instill these qualities. So what the promised Messiah then says, and this is how when we are actually offering this prayer every day, we should always remember this, that we want to understand God and we want to apply his attributes within us, like to be a sincere person, or to be a merciful person, to be a brave person, to have those qualities which are that are the essential qualities of God. And we want to have those as reflections in us. Then we have to pray that Allah gives us that ability so that we can acquire them, right? And this is what is actually the natural outcome in this prayer, that we when we learn about Allah, then we naturally want to we want to ask Allah to acquire those capabilities within us. And this is the benefit, and this is the beauty about the teaching of the Holy Quran, is that it gives all those varieties and multiple abilities and facets and ways and means in which we can improve our life and improve our qualities, improve our faculties, and it applies on people of various backgrounds and various different advancements of civilization and different levels of intelligence of people and different levels of their all different types of mentalities and temperaments of people, that it opens up for people to learn from and to improve upon. So this is how in this way I could sort of say this, but this is what the message we are getting from Surat Al-Fatiha. This is the summary of the Holy Quran, and we are taught this in the very beginning. We're given this taste and this urge to then learn all these things and to adapt and to find all these different ways and means to improve ourselves, and ultimately, especially to understand God, and ultimately and especially to have a relationship with God. So Huzur says that instead, this prayer appeals to all those faculties which human nature has been endowed with, sincere eternity, and for all that it has been made to thirst after. And that is Ihdina Siratul Mustaqim. So this is the prayer. That is, O Master of these perfect attributes. Right? So he's saying that in recognition of all those four attributes, those perfect attributes, O the munificent one who nourishes each and every particle, all of which benefit from your grace, mercy, and power to reward and punish. Make us heirs, or make us the to have that legacy within us, to be able to have the legacy which the pious people of the past had, and bestow on us each and every blessing that you bestowed on them, and save us from disobedience lest we incur your wrath, and protect us lest we are deprived of your help and are thereby led astray. So, this is the depth of of this surah. And the Holy Quran, when we read it, we should then, when we're reading it, we should always be thinking and looking for the ways and means in which we can acquire the blessings of God, and also acquire the routes in which we can stay on the right and straight path, and we can be protected from going astray. The promised Messiah is also mentioned about Ihdina Siratul Mustaqim, a very important prayer. He said that in this Kashtinu, he said that that in any activity or in any field where anyone wants to accomplish a task, they want to accomplish that task the best way and best means in order to fulfill it to its best potential. and to make that task successful. So this prayer of Ihdina Siratal Mustaqim, he explains, is that perfect prayer which actually brings us to the straight and most perfect route of doing any task. So if we, in any task, if we have, we think and we ponder, which is the best way to perform this thing? I've been trying to do this thing, or I have this project I have to do. Everyone always has to come up with a plan, which is the best. And we always wonder, will this be the best way forward? If we've never really, worked on it before, or we don't know much about it, it's always very difficult for a person to achieve that perfect path, right? The perfect plan. So in this prayer is actually, we are beseeching our God to ask our God to open up the door to give us the guidance, show us actually the ways and means in which we can fulfill our task, in any tasks that we do. Show us that plan which is straight and which will help us, and we won't have any issues and problems. So this is one of the blessings of this prayer and this surah. And the Holy Quran has so many antidotes and means in which we can improve our life, and we can find those straight paths. And also, our beloved Azur mentioned about prayers that to be protected in this day and age against the Dajjal. And the Dajjal is actually mentioned here in the end of this surah as well, with the reference of the Christians. And the Christians have been referred here, and this is the negative aspect of that, and this is the aspect of this prayer in the very end, that we pray that we will not be misguided like Dalin, which is actually, in other words, the Dajjal, which are the present day Christian nations. That is that first of all, to say that first we should pray that we are protected from being misguided by them, and we should also pray that whatever benefits that the nations that came before, we can actually adopt those, because the promised Messiah also explained in Noah's Ark that in the latter days the Muslims would resemble the Jews and the Christians, whatever their legacy, whatever blessings and Allah bestowed on them of prophethood and having those wali Allahs and having relationship with Allah. But we also are, there's a prophecy that we'll become, Muslims will also inherit the wrong qualities. But at the same time, Promised Messiah said that the bad qualities, which will also be inherited in the Muslims in the latter days, because they will start following them. At the same time, the Promised Messiah said that we'll find that from among the Muslim nation, there'll be so many who will inherit all of the beneficial qualities of the children of Israel, their status of prophethood, meaning that they had high connection with Allah. So Muslims would also be given that glad tiding that they will also be given this high spiritual state and all these various qualities and abilities. So we should pray in these few remaining hours of the day and tomorrow and throughout our life, that Allah may protect us and always keep us within that prophecy of the Surat Al-Fatiha, which is for Muslims, about those Muslims who will fall under that category of having pious natures and having connection with Allah, just like the previous righteous people from among the Jews and Christians were from before us. So in the end, I want to say my sincerest prayers to everyone for listening to me. May Allah bless you all. May Allah give you tremendous blessings for your taking the time to listen and to improve upon your knowledge. Pray for me as well, that may Allah accept whatever humble efforts I've done to try to bring to you the various aspects of the Holy Quran. I always feel inadequate. I always feel that may not be enough, or may just be enough there. But I'm not 100% sure. We always feel that we need the support of Allah, and whatever efforts I did, I tried what I tried to do in my Dars al-Quran, and I always try to do is try to give an interest into religion, an interest into learning more about the religion of Islam, and specifically I was trying to focus about researching the Holy Quran and learning the Holy Quran in depth. So may Allah make that so. May we all benefit through our research. It was a benefit for me always to do this, to spend this time and to do this research, and to bring this information to Jamaat is also, as much as it is enlightening for others in terms of getting new information. Maybe it's a repeat, but it's always for me is a process which improves my knowledge, and I always enjoy immensely. So I thank you for that, and I pray for everyone that we may continue in these last few days to get as much maximum benefit as we can. Stay safe. Pray for as well for that the coronavirus, the effect of coronavirus may finish, and that we may get out of this trial, and that also pray for the rest of the world, that they may learn something and they may turn back to God. Ameen. Jazakumullah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.